Hello, everyone. I'm Craig Stover. Welcome to ArtShow. Today, I have with me Simone Spicer. It's going to be a really good interview. But before I begin, I want to have a big thank you to all those people who are not only watching this, but for those who made donations to the center. We really appreciate your support. I am the executive director for Allen's Lane Art Center, a community nonprofit arts center in Mount Airy in Philadelphia. Again, thank you to everyone who showed up this evening. So Simone, thank you very much for agreeing to be on the art show today. Really appreciate it. We haven't seen each other for a while. We had a show at the center of yours. It was back in what, 2016, I think?
I was trying to remember that. I think 2016. All I could pull up, well, I didn't actually go back and look at my resume, but I did find this card when I showed with Richard Weiner.
Oh, yeah.
Can you see that?
Oh, yeah. That was great. That was a good
My
show.
cardboard piece. It was a good show, and I sold that piece. One of my very few sales. So I love Allen's Lane.
So I'd like to start this conversation how I normally start it, which is, how did your life in the arts begin?
Okay, let's see. My family of origin all leans toward the arts. My mother was a potter, and my father was a writer and a language teacher. He spoke a lot of languages. And they both taught at a small college in Massachusetts, in Bradford, Massachusetts, called Bradford College, Bradford Junior College back in the 70s. And it was mostly for women, and then became co-ed and a 4-year school. And in the 70s, you know, teachers had a much better deal than they do today. The salaries were decent, there were benefits. And in my parents' case, there was subsidized housing for faculty. So I grew up in a house on campus, and there were a lot of other faculty members around and kids, and it was a real intellectual community and a lot of kids, and we would run around the art department and be in the library. And
art was everywhere for you.
Art was everywhere, yeah. And
did you end up going to school for art after that?
I'd never really considered myself an artist. I just had appreciation for it, and I looked at it. And I was kind of more of an athlete, I liked gymnastics and dancing. And I went to high school for performing arts for dance. Actually, I was sent there because I was getting into a lot of trouble. And my parents thought that going to an all-girls boarding school would be a good idea for me in high school.
Did it work?
And I got there, and no, it was pretty much a miserable experience. And I realized very quickly that I was not going to be in the world of dancers, because I was surrounded by ballerinas that were 6 feet tall. And, you know, I was 5'2", and they were anorexic and skinny and competitive. And fortunately, the dorm mother in my dorm was an artist, and she came to the school the same year I did, and we gravitated to each other, and I helped her set up the art room, and I took art classes, and she was really encouraging. Thank you, Pam Considine, for getting me into sculpture. Mostly we made found object sculptures because there really weren't a lot of resources for the art department. Was mostly, the school was really about dance and music. Walnut Hill School of Performing Arts, which is now co-ed and really great, I hear. But it wasn't when I was there in 1980. And anyway, I made a lot of found object sculptures, and I'm still doing that now. That's really my start.
Did you do higher ed for art, or what was that?
I did. I took a year off after high school, and then I went to Portland School of Art in Maine. My grandmother lived in Portland and helped me get into the school. It's now the Maine College of Art, and it's really amazing. It was very small when I was there in the early 80s, and intimate, and I had amazing teachers with lineage from the faculty. I quickly knew I wanted to be in the sculpture department, and the first 2 years were foundation, and then the second 2 years you majored in something, and I majored in sculpture. And my one of my main teachers had gone to Penn here in Philly and studied under Maury Lowe, who studied under Henry Moore. So my training came from in that modernist tradition.
Mhm.
And after school, after college, I did 4 years in Portland School of Art, and then I went to the Skowhegan School, which is a really amazing program. It's a residency, I guess you'd call it, in Skowhegan, Maine, and amazing teachers come to that school. They fly people in, like a famous artist every weekend. It's really incredible. And Judy Pfaff was one of the resident teachers there. So that was a wonderful experience for me as a young person to work under one of the pioneers in installation. So that was a huge influence.
So
And then
you knew pretty much that you were going to be an artist as soon as you went to school. I assume you thought that you were going to be an artist coming out, right?
I totally thought I was going to be an artist coming out. Yeah, I think, when I first stepped into art school, I knew I'd found my people, and, that was my community. And
So after school, how did you wind up back in Philadelphia?
my husband at the time, we actually got married in Maine. We were both in the sculpture department, and I was 21, who does that, but we got married and had a good time for a while. And we together went to North Carolina for graduate school at the University of North Carolina, and built up a sculpture department that was kind of falling apart at that point. Mark was a welder, and he was asked to get the studio, the welding and bronze casting studio, getting going again. And so that was amazing. And from there, I got pregnant with our first daughter, Sally, who's also an artist, in North Carolina when I was 24. And I was 7 months pregnant when I got my degree, my master's degree. And then we decided our goal was to move to New York and become famous artists, but we quickly realized that was not going to happen at this point in time. But Philly was good because Mark's family was in Atlantic City, and by moving here, we had Grandma and Papa around to take care of Sally and catch a break. And
is your studio's in Philadelphia?
My studio is currently in my house.
And
but
has it always been, or did you have a separate studio before?
I was in the 915 Spring Garden Street building for a few years, not long. For many years, after Sally was born, I was pregnant again in 9 months. So life early on, after graduate school, was about raising kids.
Yeah.
And art happened in between the cracks. And it was a lot of struggle and divorce and and life. It was life. And
your studio is now in your home.
It is.
Do you have people, especially, COVID throws a wrench into everything, but before that, did you have people ever visit your studio?
As often as possible. Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
And which neighborhood do you live in?
I'm in Wyncote, which is, a lot of people don't know about Wyncote. We didn't even know about Wyncote. We've only lived in this house for 5 years, my second husband and myself. Wyncote is a really fabulous neighborhood. It's kind of like Mount Airy of the suburbs, they call it, because there's a lot of artists out here and a lot of huge trees, a lot of nature. And we were really fortunate to find, or it found us, this architect designed house, a modern house that was just dilapidated. And my work life has been about carpentry for many years. So I got people around me to help me restore and rebuild this place. And the man who lived here was an architect and his wife was a painter. So he had built this studio for her. And Cookie Casway, you may have heard of her. She was in her 80s when they left and sold this house to us. But she sold work in Chestnut Hill at, I can't remember, Schwartz Gallery or something, flower paintings, lots of them.
So you normally would encourage people to come to your studio. How do people get in touch with you? Usually, I guess you have a website. You have
a website, SimoneSpicer.com.
Nice. I'm always encouraging people, especially who are watching these interviews, to reach out to artists and just connect with the work, even if it's just to ask a question or something like that. People always seem hesitant to do so. So
no, please. I'm lonely in my studio. It's just me and my work. I would welcome the company. Thank you.
Is your studio big enough for you? Is it perfect?
It was, you know what? I work in trash and I work big, and I'm kind of out of room.
Okay. Well, that's actually one of my next questions is because you work in different types of materials, found objects, recycled materials, those sorts of things. Without doing a studio tour, my first question to you is really, do you have this archive of materials that you're waiting to use, or do you find that you don't have the space to do that, so you think of an idea and then go out and find the materials? Or is it a combination?
I could take you into my storage space. I have people bring me things. I have a contractor-sized trash bag of just pharmaceutical pill bottles.
Okay, all right.
With the labels all stripped. I have probably 10 contractor-sized bags of plastic single-use clear containers. Then I've got others of green and others of blue. And I've got bottle caps like you've never seen before.
So like an outside storage shed or something for all of this?
I have a small storage space that I have to pull things out to get, I know where things are. I'm really kind of hyper organized about my stuff because I have to be. It's chaos. It would be chaos if not. Sometimes I purge and throw things out, but generally I accumulate things that I think are cool and interesting to work with later on something that I don't know yet what, but honestly, like this big piece behind me, I was stumped at a certain point, and then I thought, oh yes, those orange pill bottles will give me the exact color I need. And I dug back out in there and pulled them out and was very grateful that I'd saved those things.
So I'm curious to know, I know you just tapped into your history of working as sculptor and working with found objects, but specifically with recyclable materials, because you tend to work a lot from what I've seen with those types of materials, plastics and papers and things like that. When did you really first start to get into using the recyclable materials?
In grad school, when I was pregnant, I had been working in sheet metal, welding, and forming volumes with thin sheet metal. And it was loud, dirty, horrible, noisy, and I was very pregnant, and it just didn't seem like a good idea to have the grinder, on my belly.
Right.
It was pretty, actually, I did that and realized, oh, this is bad. So I found that cardboard was a good translation, like the same kind of, you can create the same type of volumes that have flat sides or cantilever it in the same way that you can in metal. So, and it's lightweight, it's safe, and very fast. And once I realized how fast I could work in cardboard with little materials and no expense and large because it's lightweight, I fell in love with cardboard, and I worked in cardboard for at least 10 years.
Yeah, I saw that from your website, some of those pieces that were even in the show that we had here. And it was
Yeah, that was my cardboard phase.
in fact, I wanted to ask a question that we had a conversation last time you were here about this. I thought it was fascinating. I'd like if you could talk a minute about the recyclable materials that you use, and do you worry about it lasting, and archiving the materials and how they break down? So I know there's a difference between the paper and the plastics, but it was fascinating to me that you talked about what you did for even just for the cardboard stuff. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about what do you do
To make it to make it last longer, you mean? Or I don't do much to make it last longer. I just I don't worry about it so much. Sometimes I think that the natural decay of the materials is okay and part of the piece. I mean, I'm not quite sure I'm going to be remembered 500 years from now, so I don't really feel any need to have my work last that long.
That attitude.
I know, right?
Well,
As long as they last, I don't want them disintegrating during my lifetime.
I remember you were talking about you were treating some of the cardboards with paints, and I don't know if it was like a protective varnish or something as well.
Oh, well, I did a series of street people made out of cardboard boxes, and I was putting them outside on the streets in Old City when I lived down there briefly. And I was filming them, and I thought I'd just leave them there because it was really kind of fascinating to watch people pass by and do a double take, like, oh my God, is that a person, or is that a is that a box? Are they wrapped in cardboard? What am I looking at? And then it started raining, and some guy came along and kicked my pieces, stepped on it to see if it was hollow or not. And I thought, I can't watch this. My stuff's getting destroyed. So I quickly grabbed them all and threw them in the back of my vehicle, and got more conscious about using, like you said, a sealer that soaked into the materials. And the cardboard, I can't really remember what it was, but it's more of like a waterproofer. And then I started buying archival cardboard at an art supply store. And then somebody said, there is no such thing as archival cardboard. So I was probably duped. I don't know.
Comes from some free Florida swampland or something.
Exactly. But Michelangelo Pistoletto back in the 50s made some work out of cardboard, and they look like they did the day he made them. So I'm feeling like, this stuff is going to be around for a while. I'm not really worried about it.
I always think of painters like Pollock and Anson Kiefer, where every time they have a show, it just falls off the wall, and they have to sweep it up afterwards. It's just part of the process, and
part of our process. Yeah, right.
People ask me about color and how does it keep it from fading, and I say everything fades. My car is fading right now. So,
right.
But, it does make me think about since we've last spoken, I have seen a lot of shift in you using plastics, and of course plastics will
fade.
5 years though. 500 years.
These things, like I probably have 1 million of these because we use Tide, and I'm totally attracted to the the advertising and the allure of the perfect shape, and it's all about engineering and science and technology and what looks good, feels good, smells good. So I want to incorporate that into my work. But those babies fade so fast. I made a head of Trump using Tide bottles, and it was exposed to sun for only a short amount of time. His hair was pieces. I broke up the Tide bottle and just made kind of like flames on the head. And they were practically like a skin tone, fleshy color.
Wow.
Within months. So I went back into the piece with paint to get back the orange, and discovered that I really need to spray UV protective coatings on all of my stuff that I don't paint. If I want to just leave it, the original plastic material, they really do fade.
Well, I was curious to know, because I've seen, from the work of yours that I've seen, if you think using these alternate materials, uh, has it, has it, do you think maybe the color of the materials has forced a change in your palette? Or do you think your palette was always this vibrant and it just so happened to click with the materials that you found?
My palette was always this vibrant. I could never get paint. I'm really not a good painter, and I could never get the paint to be as bright as I wanted it to be.
So the
That's funny
materials,
you asked that. I hadn't even thought about that, but I was always disappointed at paintings. They just didn't, they weren't bright enough. Yeah.
well, the
So
cardboard,
working with light is really,
right?
you can't go wrong with if you want bright.
Your cardboard pieces have this very, earthy look, like, because it's cardboard and that material still peeks through even when you paint it. But the other materials, like what you have behind you, is not earthy. I mean, it's that vibrant, super saturated colors. And I was
And
just
it's the
curious.
cosmos. It's a spiral galaxy. It's definitely not earthy.
Right. Well, speaking of what's behind you, is that piece we're looking at, seeing behind you, the most current?
It is. This piece is 20 feet long and 10 feet tall, and it's all single-use plastic containers, plastic bags, LED lights poked through. Where can I set this? Poked through panels of foam, 2-inch foam board that's 5 panels next to each other of 2-inch thick foam board that are 4 feet wide and 8 feet tall.
Did you make this for something specific, or did you just make it because you had to make it?
No, it's a commission for the Philadelphia airport. It's going to be in
Nice.
Terminal C. Yes, and this is something they came to me before COVID, and a year in advance, and knew that they wanted a piece about recycling because the airports they're gonna start discontinuing their plastic straws, spoons, and forks, I guess. And so they wanted a piece of artwork that was somehow about that, or by someone who worked with recyclables.
Perfect.
So yeah, so that's exciting. And the curator, Leah Douglas, came to my studio to talk about like what they would look at, what they felt would be appropriate for this case that's 20 feet long and 10 feet tall. And she looked at a piece I have called Nova, that's a bunch of plastic clear bottles, kind of like a supernova exploding out from a ratty plastic bag. And she said, "Can you make something like that for the case?" And I thought, oh God, like 4,000 clear bottles. Yeah, sure. And and then COVID hit, and I thought, how am I going to get my materials? Because the way I get these things is I scrounge through people's recycling bins. Not a good idea during COVID.
Right.
So I went to the neighborhood site, which is for anyone who's wanting anything, next door neighbor, and just typed in if you would be willing to save your transparent plastic bottles for me. I'm making an art piece, blah, blah, blah. And so many people got back to me. I spent 1 month, the month of May, I was going out in the truck 2 times a week collecting bags, and it was really great. People would meet me and get excited about the project, and they were saving. They said, come back in a couple days, I'll have so much more. And I wound up collecting like 3 times as many as I need, and then sterilizing them in the backyard, which is a huge piece of my work, ripping labels off of bottles, sterilizing them, sorting them, putting them in bags.
The results are great. I mean, you're the first
Well,
one with that shimmering background, so
I know it's kind of fun having lights inside them. They just, reflect and refract in so many different ways. It's beautiful, jewel-like, and disgusting at the same time.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about creativity, and specifically, so like the piece behind you and the other works that you've done the last few years. I'm curious to know about your inspiration. I find that with a lot of artists, it tends to fall in one of two categories. Either artists, the ones I talk with are either like hit by a lightning bolt with creativity. That's what I want to do. Or I find that their way of working is sort of to maybe have an idea, but build it over time and it grows. It's sort of two camps. I'm curious, would you describe yourself in more one camp than the other?
I think I start out fumbling around, like you said, the second camp, and seeing what feels right and intuitively moving forward. And then every once in a while, there'll be like you said, camp one. So it's really a kind of a combination of both things.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not somebody, you hear a lot of artists say, well, I get into the studio every day at 8 o'clock and I leave at 5 and I sit through, these dry periods and I just, plug along. I don't do that. If I don't feel like being in here, I'm not in here.
You can't force it, in other words.
I can't force it. I've tried. I make junk. It's not inspirational.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. For me, it's all about materials, my inspiration. I'm uninspired by blank canvases,
Mm-hmm.
white paper, blocks of stone, lumps of clay, that kind of thing. But give me something that had a past life and suddenly I can have a dialogue with it, It has something to say to me and I can, that's where the inspiration comes.
So I take it that you probably don't have, I often talk about studio rituals, like you go in the studio and you have to have the radio on and you have to have a sandwich and the lights dim and nobody around or something like that. I don't think you're like that. You're probably
I am totally like that.
Oh, really?
Totally like that. Yes.
Can you work with other people in your studio or does it have to be just you?
I haven't worked with anybody in my studio. My friend Winnie, we decided we would have a decorative painting business together and just make like schlocky art, like you see it in Marshall's Home Goods, and and make money that way. And so she was here, we were working together, and it was absolutely super fun. Yeah. But it wasn't serious work, I don't know. I think I'm too. That's like, would you like a roommate at age 45? No, thank you.
Pass.
Pass.
So
no.
Over time, say like, years ago when you first established your studio as to now, did you always have the same working methods or have things changed dramatically?
Nope, nothing's changed dramatically. I work like, how you keep your house, like some people are really tidy, some people are kind of sloppy. In my studio, when I'm working, I throw things around and make like a giant mess. Mm-hmm. And then when I'm done, I walk out the door. So when I come in the next day or the next time, the first thing I always do is sweep my floor and organize my tools. And I can't start until everything's perfect. And my floors are white. My walls are always white. My floors are always white. And what was I going to say? So I'm a neat freak, I guess. I have to have I can't have another piece in the room. If I can't work, if I have more than, can only have the thing I'm working on in my space.
But it sounds like at the end of the day, no pun intended, you trash your studio.
Oh my God, I so trash my studio and I love it. That is the best feeling, just being like a pig and slop. And I'm stepping on the bottles and they're crunching and I'm pulling my ladder and things are falling on the floor. I'm in heaven. That's when I'm in heaven.
I'll put a challenge to you. I want to see on your next social media post, 2 photos of your studio, a before and an after. I want to see just how badly you can wreck.
Oh, it's bad. It's bad.
You only work on one piece at a time then, I take it.
I only work on one piece at a time. Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess, like the piece behind you, who has space for more than one.
But I will say, sometimes I can't finish things, and they do get put on the back burner, and then they're out there, they're around me, the unfinished pieces that aren't quite gelled yet, and then I go back to them. But I don't like work on something one day and then something another day. There's always one point of focus.
Huh. That's great. Uh, will the piece behind you, will we find similar things in the next pieces that you make?
I'm thinking yes, because I'm loving LED lights, the little fairy lights. You can get these pre-programmed Arduinos with 12 buttons that you press to get them doing different patterns and things. I want to show you something in that piece so bad. Can I move my tablet over to show you my?
Behind you?
Yeah, the one behind me.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take you over here for just one quick second, because I really want you to, if I can get over there with it. Where the heck is that thing? Okay, this flashy thing, those are all orange pill bottles.
Mm-hmm.
And you can sort of see the flashiness is different than the other flashing, spinning stuff. Anyway, it's really inspirational work with these LED lights. They don't generate any heat, and they last, apparently. I've contacted the companies because I'm scared about this piece in the airport's up for 11 and a half months, 24/7. These lights are going to be on. And I thought, wow, what they
backups then? Is that what you?
No, they told me that I should be good for 5 years of 24/7 with these lights. And yeah, and so they generate no heat, they last forever. You can get them to do all kinds of different things. And so I'm excited about them. This is the first piece that I've used these particular types of. They're like $14 or less. And
so after 5 years, does this artwork then get recycled as well?
Perhaps. I don't know what I'm going to do with it when it's done at the airport. I'm going to probably rip it apart. Yeah. I mean, I can't save.
It's the nature of the artwork. Yeah.
I guess it's the nature of installation. And I find that it difficult. I mean, I really try and save as much of my work as I can. And storage is a big problem.
Yeah. Unless you can find a home for it. There's very few people that can absorb a 10-foot, 20-foot.
This isn't the kind of, I'm not doing the kind of work people want in their homes. I'm not selling, it's not, it's very rare for me to, although I did sell a piece this summer, which felt great, and yay.
Yeah, right.
But it's really rare.
So lastly, I just want to ask, this particular piece behind you, do you have, I would love to see the whole thing. Have you been able to photograph all of it yet?
My friend with the new iPhone 12 was able to photograph the whole thing. When I do the pano, it bends it. And it doesn't, it doesn't look so good. But the new iPhone 12, which I really want one of these things, it was a beautiful straight image, really neat.
I would love to see the whole thing, and I can wait until it's installed in the airport. I hope that once it's installed there, that I'll be able to get some photos to see it.
Oh, thanks. Me too. Because, this is the length of my studio, this piece, and the width of my studio is only 12 feet, maybe 14 feet. I'm not sure, but I can't get far enough away from this thing to see it as a whole. I have to go out my door and look in from the backyard. But because of the door, I can't see the whole thing. But
I might not even recognize it once it's installed. So I really look
I just hope it holds together as a cohesive work.
I'm sure it will. Well, I want to thank you very much for coming to ArtShow today. It was a great conversation. I had a lot of fun, and I have another dozen questions for you. So maybe that's part 2.
Really fun. Thank you so much. This was amazing.
ArtShow Live. Thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing you at the next one. Thank you.
Donate, dig deep. Allen's Lane is the best. Ballet lessons, great ceramics classes, swing dancing, theater productions. I love Allen's Lane. More power to you. Thanks so much for what you do.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.